most people don't actually have goals, they have vibes. You do not need a new planner and you don't really need more motivational quotes. You need a destination that can actually be measured. If your goal is income, you need to understand which asset classes are going to produce income, how long it's going to take, what risk you're willing to hold. And this is where people get so lost, particularly when it comes to crypto. People say crypto is risky. What they usually mean is crypto is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels dangerous when you don't have a strategy. Your why has to become more real than your excuses, because excuses are not a character flaw. They are actually... Welcome to Rich and Regulated, where women learn to build wealth in alignment and flow. I'm Jessica Soul. For over a decade, I've helped women create the lives of their dreams, and here I'll share how I build wealth, fast-track results, and reveal money truths that will blow your mind. Let's get wealthy. If you're setting goals like you're writing wishes into the air, this episode might offend you in the best way possible, because most people don't actually have goals. They have vibes. What I mean by that is loose desires, pretty words, emotional concepts that make them feel like they're moving while they're absolutely doing nothing to make their life change. And I'm not saying that to be harsh. I'm saying it because I have watched intelligent women stay financially stuck for years and years, not because they're incapable, but because they're unwilling to be specific with their goals. And I want you to know, you do not need a new planner and you don't really need more motivational quotes. You need a destination that can actually be measured. Because at the end of the day, the universe, the market, your nervous system, your bank account, your calendar, your business, your body, none of it responds to unclear instructions. It responds to direction. So today we're talking about goal setting, but not the way you've heard it before. We're talking about destination, then the why, and then we're going to talk about reverse engineering. And if you really listen, I promise you something is going to click. The thing is, most people don't fail because they wanted the wrong thing. They actually fail because they've never decided they wanted it badly enough to build for it properly. And today we change that. So let's start at the end, the destination. So when I ask somebody, what do you want? And they say freedom, I already know why they're not moving, why they're not achieving what they want to achieve. Because in my opinion, freedom is not a goal. Freedom is a concept. And freedom to one person is paying bills without stress, while to another, it's leaving a relationship or never working again. And to somebody else, it's owning assets, flying first class, and making money while they sleep. So when you say you want freedom, what you're really saying is, I don't exactly know what I want, but what I want is to feel better than this. And this might be honest, but it isn't strategic. The thing is, a destination has to be specific and it needs to have edges. It needs to have time frames. It has clarity that quiets your nervous system because that destination finally knows what it's building towards. And this is where SMART goal framework matters. And not because it feels sexy, but because it forces honesty. And a SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And I'll add this, if your goal isn't measurable, to me, it really isn't a goal. It's just a mood. It's something you want to feel. It's often a fluffy desire that you won't define because at some level, you're afraid of what might happen if you actually get it. Now, if you can't track it, you cannot steer it. And if you can't steer it, you cannot build it. So instead of I want freedom, what I would prefer you say is I want an additional $8,000 per month in reliable income by January next year. Or I want a $500,000 portfolio within 3 years. I want assets that cover my household expenses, So my choices aren't driven by pressure. Now we have something real. And this is where people tend to become uncomfortable because specificity removes fantasy. Specificity means you also could be wrong. And it means you might have to admit that you actually haven't been building. All you've been doing so far is hoping. But let me tell you, if you stay vague, you are going to stay comfortable. And comfort is where dreams go to quietly die. So now we move to the line that separates women who play with goals from women who become inevitable. The why, not the Pinterest why, not because I want to feel good or because everyone else is doing it. I'm talking about the why that completely rearranges your life. The why that makes you cry. And I want to tell you, if your why does not carry real weight, you will never do the work. You'll do the easy parts, you'll dabble with your goals, you'll start, you'll stop, you'll disappear, and likely you'll vanish the moment things get uncomfortable or confusing for you. And then what you'll say is, I'm just not consistent, when the truth is your why was never strong enough to demand consistency from you. And this is what people hate to admit. They want the outcome without the identity shift. They want the destination without committing to the devotion. And so I want you to ask yourself honestly, if you don't hit the goal, what is it actually going to cost you? Not emotionally, not spiritually, but practically. Is it going to cost you time with your children because you are staying in an overworked situation? Does it cost you options because you stay financially dependent on somebody else? Does it cost you your health because you keep choosing shortcuts? Will it cost you your future because you keep delaying the build? The thing is, your why has to become more real than your excuses because excuses are not a character flaw. They are actually a protection mechanism. So saying I'm confused usually means I'm scared of getting it wrong. I'm too busy usually means this isn't non-negotiable for me yet. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story. I started my investment journey with no results. And at the beginning, I had said to myself, I dipped my toe in and hoped for magic, right? Now, a real why creates behavior change. It turns an I want into an I will, and it turns one day into I'm building it now. Because desire is not proof of your future. Your actions are. Now, this is the part most people skip because it requires thinking, not wishing. Once you have a destination and a strong why, you then need to reverse engineer the path that is going to get you there. And this is how money stops becoming mystical and starts becoming structural. And in business, I don't just write down a number, journal about it, think about it. I actually look at my offers. I look at my pricing. I start to think about my conversion rates and ask myself seriously what it will take, how much consistency is required to hit that financial goal. How many sales, how many leads, what output is required weekly? What standards must I hold so that I don't self-sabotage? And that's what reverse engineering is really about. It's actually not magic. It's just math and behavior changes. And wealth works in the same way. Just quickly, guys, if you're a woman who's earning well but still feels like your money isn't working for you, I can help. My Build Your Wealth portal is the perfect place to begin, and for less than $100 a month, I'll teach you the exact groundwork that has allowed me to create freedom for my family. Just hit the link in the show notes to connect into my community today. Now back to the episode. If your goal is income, you need to understand which asset classes are going to produce income, how long it's going to take, what risk you're willing to hold. And this is where people get so lost, particularly when it comes to crypto. And it's actually not because it's too hard. It's more so because they enter without a destination and they enter with hope and with a vibe of, I just want to be rich, but they don't have a timeline and they don't have a plan. They've got no understanding of probability And so what happens is their nervous system doesn't actually feel excited. Instead, it feels threatened. They start to feel fear, confusion, paralysis, and then they stop. And it's not because women are incapable, it's because their strategy does not match their capacity. Now let's talk about risk tolerance properly. Risk tolerance isn't how brave you feel on a good day. It's your ability to stay consistent inside of uncertainty. It's your capacity to hold volatility without making emotional decisions that destroy long-term outcomes. And it's the difference between somebody who stays in the market and somebody who panics, sells, and calls the whole thing a scam. And trust me, I want you to hear this clearly. Crypto is not the only risky asset out there. Real estate has risk. Rates shift all of the time. Tenants destroy properties. Liquidity dries up. People over leverage. Stocks have risk. Companies drop overnight. Entire sectors can collapse. Even cash has a risk because inflation erodes it quietly, even when you have a feeling of safety. And so when people say crypto is risky, what they usually mean is crypto is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels dangerous when you don't have a strategy. And the solution is not avoiding risk. It is understanding it, measuring it, and building a portfolio that's aligned with your timeline and your horizon. Because a strategy for a woman who's planning a 12-month overseas trip is not the same as the strategy for somebody who's building generational wealth over a 20-year period. And this is where people blow themselves up. They copy someone else's strategy without understanding their own personal destination. They follow a 4-year cycle and panic after 4 weeks, right? They want long-term outcomes with short-term patience. And I can tell you that markets punish that every single time. So I want you to ask yourself this, like an adult. What is the probability that my current actions produce the outcome I say I want? I'm going to repeat that one. What is the probability that my current actions are going to produce the outcome I say I want? Probability. So if you want an extra $10,000 per month, where is that actually coming from? Which asset class? How long is it going to take? What is the risk profile? What is the volatility? Can you access the liquidity? What is required from you to maintain it? And what I want you to know, ladies, is that some strategies are stable and fully destination orientated, and others are higher upside, higher volatility, and extremely cycle dependent. And the thing is that neither is wrong, but you cannot build intelligently if you do not know which is which. And this is why proximity matters. Without proximity, you are very likely going to confuse risk with danger, volatility with failure, and normally pull back with a bad decision and exit the very thing you needed to hold. And the thing is, most people don't lose money because they choose the wrong asset. They actually lose money because they cannot hold the right asset long enough. And that is not a market problem. This is a capacity problem, a strategy problem, and a problem with your why. And here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You can be intelligent and still be lost because intelligence does not actually build wealth. Clear decision-making does. Structure does. Proximity does. And if you're trying to navigate complex markets alone, you're not just being independent, you're actually becoming exposed. You're relying on luck, you're relying on vibes. And I don't teach women how to gamble with their future. I teach women how to build their future. And you can find more information about this inside of my free Crypto for Women community. So remember this, a destination without a why collapses under pressure. And a why without a plan stays emotional and it will be unexecuted. A plan without risk awareness turns into panic. This is the architecture of destination. A why, reverse engineering, risk tolerance, and probability. And look, if that feels like a lot, it's because it actually is. You see, wealth isn't built through motivation. It's built through standards, through women who stop romanticizing outcomes and start designing them. So I want you to ask yourself, what is it that you actually want? Not a word, not a mood, not freedom. I want you to define the number, the time frame, the destination, and I want you to know why it matters so much that you refuse to abandon it. Because when your why has weight, your actions stop needing encouragement. They become inevitable. And that is when everything changes. I'll see you in the next episode. If you've gotten value from today's episode, make sure you subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And if you're ready for more support in building regulated wealth strategies, check out the link in the show notes. Have a beautiful day.